Shantha Kumari from Senior Professor from Pondicherry University from Philosophy Department.
Namaste everybody in the audience and on the dais. And I thank Dr. Upendra Rao for having given me this opportunity to make this presentation before you all. I will be presenting the views of Dvaita-vedanta, and the aim is to establish how it is both Adhyatma Vidya as well as Nyaya Vidya, and this is in response to the criticisms made by Western philosophers who have misunderstood Indian philosophy and often have confused it with mythology, and they think that because it is moksha oriented, Indian philosophers, as you know, the whole aim is to terminate the tapatraya, adhyatmika, adibhautika and adidaivika, created problems for the individual due to avidya, and this is how all the various systems of Indian philosophy have arisen from this kind of speculation. And it was not Kakadanta Pariksha. They were interested only in views that had direct relevance for life. And although it is initially pessimistic, taking into consideration the non-eternal nature of the empirical phenomena, this was understood as otherworldly and moksha oriented and all that. But the geniuses that the Indian rishis and the acharyas have been, they have blended harmoniously both this worldly as well as otherworldly aspects in their sadhanas and their philosophy, so that nothing is missed out. You can simultaneously get both the spiritual as well as the empirical benefits from out of that philosophy. So first I would like to say that Shankara, Madhva, who came later, and in between them there was Ramanuja. Ramanuja and Madhva, as you know, both of them had opportunity to study Advaita, but they rejected it for two reasons. Because it ignored the reality of the world, and both of them, they viewed Brahman as Saguna, and this was in response to the Nirguna conception of Brahman and knowledge as means to moksha, which was rejected by both Ramanuja and Madhva, who instead wanted to make way for bhakti and prapatti. Now, all these systems of Indian philosophy, as you know, they have pramanas, and therefore Matilal, who chaired the Eastern religions and Western thought chair, he said that the utilization of the pramana method has retrieved the Indian classics from being delegated to the domains of religion, and it has made them systems of rigorous Indian philosophy. So I will first take up the three sections: epistemology, metaphysics, and the axiology part. Now you see that in epistemology, Madhva gave three criteria for reality: Pramiti Vishayatva, Deshakala Sambandha, and Artha Kriyakaritva. On the basis of that, 10 metaphysical categories and all the other subdivisions in that. So the two main concepts in Dvaita, as you know, are Swatantra concept, which Brahman alone, God alone, that is Lord Vishnu, he is independent, and all the other categories are Paratantra, dependent on Lord Vishnu. Then when we take up the concept of the jivas, you have the Taratamya concept, which is unique in Dvaita, Swarupa Taratamya, classification of the souls as due to the variations in Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. You have three kinds of souls, that is Sattvika souls, in whom Sattva is predominant, Rajasika souls and Tamasika souls predominant in Rajas and Tamoguna. And among these, only the Sattvika souls are called as Mukti Yogya, whereas the other two are Nitya Samsarin, and the Tamasika souls are condemned to hell. And these differences, Vedas, are not only here, but even in the state of liberation, this distinction continues. So the criticism against madhva will be that if it is a theistic system, this kind of an eternal damnation where the souls will be condemned to hell throughout will be inconsistent with a theistic system where you think that God is kind and full of love and wants to liberate jivas. But Madhva here says the Lord is supreme sovereign, He knows how to govern the world, and therefore there is no need for any kind of a recommendation from the jivas for liberating the soul. This concept of Sarvamukti is a wish on the part of the soul. But the fact is that these kind of differences are there among souls. And so you have Ananda Taratamya in the concept of liberation, where all the souls enjoy moksha equally, Ananda, but there is still difference in that state. Then, what is it that is unique in Madhva? That I told you, there are four terms we would like to take up. One is philosophy, one is science, the other is religion. Now, every philosophy, if we take up, every religion has a philosophy, but philosophy need not be religious. There are atheistic systems like Jainism, Buddhism, and theistic systems, as you know, Shaivism, Vaishnavism, and materialistic systems like Charvaka, realistic systems like Nyaya, and trans-theistic system as you have in Advaita, then mystic skepticism, Nagarjuna's philosophy. So there are different kinds of philosophy, and the methodology of philosophy is Tarka and Yukti. Tarka and Yukti, that is reasoning and argumentation. But if we take up religion, the methodology is Shraddha and Bhakti, faith and devotion, and we cannot interchange the methodology of religion and philosophy, because if we take up philosophy and use Shraddha and Bhakti, philosophy will become dogmatic and subjective. And if we use questioning in the field of religion, then it will become heresy, or doubting Thomases. It will give scope for that kind of an attitude. So we have to be very clear about the methodology of both philosophy and religion, and the methodologies cannot be interchanged. Then if we take up theology, theology justifies the beliefs of a system, and then we have soteriology, which studies the theories of salvation. So in the West, people, critics, they thought all Indian systems, it is soteriology, there is no philosophy. But here once again, because of the pramana method and because we use viveka as the prerequisite in the sadhanas, and even in Jnana Yoga, we have Shravana Manana, rational reflection, where there is place for questioning, argument, and all that for the sake of clarity and for eliminating doubts. So then we have Nididhyasana. And soteriology, here they are all theories of salvation, because most of these are moksha oriented, and there is nothing to be apologetic about it, because the purpose of life, if we consider that human beings are the crown of creation, then the purpose of life is to attain that, and that is what everybody has been highlighting. All the whether the Astika, the Nastika systems, except Charvaka, that the human life is precious and rare, and therefore this opportunity is not to be lost just in pursuing artha and kama. There is dharma and moksha that we have to look into, because all the problems that we are facing today is due to lack of dharma, overindulgence in kama, and excessive pursuit and enjoyment of artha with no regard for moksha. So these acharyas, as we find in the Dasa Sampradaya, the literature, the songs of devotion that have been composed by these Haridasas, they constantly remind us about how we have to make our minds Godward turn. And Indian philosophy is a science. Why do I say that? Because there are two kinds of knowledge, lower knowledge and higher knowledge. Lower knowledge, aparagyana, is what we get through the channels of the senses and the mind. Whether it's the depths of the Pacific or the stars in the galaxy or water on the moon and Mars, all this is lower knowledge because it cannot liberate the self. Higher knowledge, highest knowledge, it is called Taraka Jnana, and we find Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita telling that among the kinds of vidyas, he is Adhyatma Vidya. Here, when we take up science, there are two meanings for science. One is from the perspective of Vishaya, the other is from the perspective of Vichara. You call botany, zoology as science because they focus on the study of plants and animals, or any other subject, geology, focusing on earth, or astronomy on planets, all that. Then, vichara, you say a paper is scientific because it is a systematic, unbiased and thoroughgoing investigation of whatever is studied. So the paper becomes a scientific paper, it's a science. Now, if we take Adhyatma Vidya, it is science of the soul. Adhyatma, science of the inner soul. And every science has got its own methodology. In ornithology, it is field study, archaeology, it's excavation, and so every subject has got its own unique methodology. And when we say that this is science of soul, with regard to pramanas, you find Advaita making through pramana vyavastha a clear division between Shruti having Paramarthika Pramanya and other five pramanas, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Arthapati, Anupalabdhi, being restricted to the Vyavaharika and accorded Vyavaharika Pramanya. Because the transcendental Sukshma categories like self and God, they fall beyond the scope of Pratyaksha and other pramanas. So that is the reason given by Shankara for not giving all the pramanas an equal status. But in Dvaita we find that because Shruti is based on Pratyaksha, Shruti cannot overrule Pratyaksha, and therefore madhva gives equal importance to all the pramanas, especially Pratyaksha, because it is the Jeshta pramana. And so this is how each philosopher is giving rational arguments to justify his philosophy through systematic exploration of categories and other phenomena. And when we say that this is Adhyatma Vidya, soteriology, then philosophy I completed, science I have done. So religion. When we say religion, there are two kinds of religion, meanings, two meanings. One is theism, which believes in a personal God. The other is religion because it admits the concept of liberation. Concept of liberation, permanent freedom from dukkha and attainment of ananda. That way, Jainism and Buddhism, which are atheistic, they become world religions. So we find that all these criticisms that have been made by Western philosophers. For example, in science you have a hypothesis, there is experiment, observation, and finally a person who is competent to conduct that experiment. So here we have the hypothesis from Shastras. Just because it is based on scriptures does not mean that it is dogmatic. It is beginning with the hypothesis and then going into experience and confirming it through aparoksha jnana in one's own experience. So the beginning is only the Shastra based is only the beginning, not the end of that discovery or investigation. And two kinds of discovery are there, novelty. One is in science you find a new planet, a new species. In literature we do critical edition for eliminating interpolation or additions later, all that. But in philosophy, the novelty consists in giving a new interpretation to human experience and the world around us, the jivas and the jagat. So, Indian philosophy is a bhashya tradition, commentarial tradition, where the sources and the text are the same, but you have different systems because of differences in interpretation in the nature, number, and scope of the categories. So that is how every philosopher is able to bring up his own unique system of philosophy. And here you find Kautilya. Kautilya gave a fourfold classification of knowledge. Anvikshiki, Trayi, Varta, Dandaniti. And he was very sensible not to confuse Anvikshiki with Trayi, which the West did. And therefore they thought that the problems which the West encountered there is equally applicable in the Indian context, but this is not the case, because our rishis themselves were great scientists. Rishi itself, Darshi. And so we find that in that fourfold classification, when we take Vidya, science, the Anubandha Chatushtaya are there, which a subject has to spell out Vishaya, the Paramana, the Phala, and the Adhikarit. So if these conditions are fulfilled, you can classify a system as science. So the Vishaya here will be spiritual categories, and Pramana, the proofs are your scriptures, and the Phala is liberation permanently from samsara. Then the Adhikaritva. So each system gives its Adhikaritva, and to prepare that Adhikaritva, they have a sadhana to equip the sadhaka with that kind of a mental orientation, because mind is mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. So today psychology is a separate discipline, but here in the sadhanas we have the psychology where we have to transcend the mind through the mind, kantaka udharana nyaya. So this is how all the acharyas have been justifying themselves as a unique philosopher, and at the same time these are living philosophies and intended for practice. Just like only by eating food hunger is satisfied, philosophy has to be practiced. It is not for speculation, it is for realization. Thank you.